Hi all, hope you're doing well. Over the last few weeks, I've been really enjoying this, the Diplomat Viper. And this pen was generously sent to me for review from goldspot.com. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you trusting me with your product and supporting this channel. This pen has a beautiful snake-like pattern engraved into it, and it has vintage vibes with a cool hooded nib. During the review process, I like to put this pen through its paces and change up its ink, which is what I want to do here today. I currently have this pen inked up with Waterman Serenity Blue, and today I'm going to change it up into Diamine's Writer's Blood. Before I do that, we'll go ahead and do a quick writing sample just so you can see what this pen is like. Let me go ahead and rotate the angle a little bit. Again, this is the Diplomat Viper. And it uses a hooded nib, which is stainless steel. You can see a little bit of ink splattering. That's not unusual for hooded nibs. It's only available in one nib size, and it is advertised as a fine medium. And then this is also Waterman Serenity Blue. Great ink flow, very smooth nib. It is quite stiff, which is okay because I think this pen is mostly going to be used for short notes. In order to change up the ink, we are going to need some tools. I'm going to have some grippy materials on the side for me to use, as well as a bulb syringe, and then some plastic cups, and lastly, some paper towel. But before we get into that process, I want to first empty out the ink that's already in this pen. And when you are going to change up inks, you're left with a choice. You can either write the pen dry, dump the ink out into the sink, or put it back into the bottle, which is what I like to do. Now, as you write with a pen, the ink is going to slowly become more saturated. The water inside the ink will evaporate through the cap. That's just normal operation. So if you want to keep your bottle pristine, you might want to dump this into the sink instead of empty it out into the bottle. But I am going to just run that piston a couple times. And of course, make sure that the nib is not submerged into the ink. Otherwise, you're going to draw more ink back into the pen. We'll go ahead and cap this up. I'll throw the barrel back on the pen, as well as the cap. I really love this magnetic cap. It's such a satisfying closing mechanism. But off of that tangent for a second, I'll meet you over at the sink. And here we are at the sink. Down in the basin, I do have a plastic cup that we will use to fill up with fresh water and flush out this pen. And off to the side, I have another plastic cup lined with paper towels to help dry washed out components. We're going to go ahead and remove this cap and run it under some water. If you are seeing some discolored water, that means there's probably ink inside this cap, and you might need to consider rinsing it out further or letting it soak overnight. But this one looks pretty clean, so I'm going to go ahead and drop that into our cup with paper towel. And then we'll go ahead and unscrew the barrel. Now the barrel really shouldn't have any ink in it either. If you do get ink in the barrel, chances are the converter is not fully connected to the grip section, and you'll probably see some ink staining the outside of the converter as well. So I'm going to drop this one straight into our cup as well. And then for the grip section and the converter, we're going to pull that converter out. I'll drop the grip section into our cup. And then we're going to want to disassemble this converter. In order to do so, I'll grab my gripping materials and unscrew the back sleeve. I might have to retract the rod in order to allow us to do this. There we go. I'll be able to pull that out. And we are getting quite a few components inside this converter. There is a little agitator, which is easy to lose. I'll drop that into the cup. We'll rinse out our chamber. If you see that the chamber is staining, it might be worth soaking it, or maybe using some pen flush to help break up dried out ink. And then I'm also going to run this piston rod under the water. I'll rub it a little bit with my fingers just to make sure there's no dried up ink. That seems pretty good. We'll drop these into our cup. And then lastly, we have our grip section. So this is gonna hold most of the ink in the pen. I'm gonna run it under some water just to start off. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to disassemble the grip further. I typically like to disassemble it in order to clean out the nib and feed, but it seems to be held together with glue, so we're not gonna do that today. I'm gonna take my bulb syringe and force some fresh water through this grip. And we're gonna just keep doing that until we see the water runs clean. It already looks like it is quite clean. I'll get some fresh water just to make sure. Yep, I'm not seeing any discoloration there, so I think this grip section is pretty clean. I'll go ahead and throw this into our cup as well. I'm gonna give these components a moment to dry out, and then I'll meet you over at the table to reassemble the pen. And we're back at the table. I pulled in a pen tray just to help keep the components organized. I also have some fresh paper towel that I'm gonna use to help dry out our components. The first item that I grabbed is the barrel. I'll go ahead and roll up some paper towel just to make sure there's no water in here. Water in this component's not really going to affect the operation of the pen, but it's good to make sure everything's dry. We'll go ahead and grab the cap as well. This one I did run under water, so it might hold a little bit of moisture. I'm not seeing any ink on this paper towel, so that's a good sign. Let's grab our grip section next. This is gonna hold on to most of the water. So we're gonna just dab the nib. Try to make sure that that is as dried off as it can be. If you aren't in a rush to re-ink your pen, you could let this sit overnight and really dry out that feed. It does not hurt, but this will speed up the process a bit. So that seems pretty dry. Next, we have our converter, which has quite a few parts. I'm gonna take them out, make sure that I'm not missing anything. That looks good. Okay, for the converter, we have our chamber and an agitator. This one is quite easy to lose. It's not a critical component. It basically is there to break up surface tension and help make sure that ink freely flows, but not a huge deal if it's lost. And actually a lot of people like to remove it because it can limit the amount of ink that you can get into this chamber. We will go ahead and put our piston unit back in. Good. There is a little trim piece back there that you line up to notches on the chamber. And then this sleeve goes right over the top and then gets screwed down. And that should be fully functional. That looks great. I'm gonna go ahead and reinsert that into our grip section. Reattach our barrel and our cap. Let me set this aside, pull in our new ink, which again is Diamine Writer's Blood. It's a beautiful deep red ink with a little hint of purple. I think it's gonna complement the brown on this pen quite nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and take off the cap and the barrel for the pen. Extend the piston in the converter all the way down. Put the nib into the ink and then screw up the converter. And to help get a good full fill, I'm going to extend the converter piston and then retract it one more time. That looks like a nice full fill. I'll cap up the bottle so we don't get a big spill. Wipe off the grip section. We'll put the barrel back on the pen. Let me pull in our writing sample. I'll angle the camera down for us. And this is still that Diplomat Viper, has not changed. With a fine medium nib. Oh, it's writing very smoothly. The ink flow seems great. Again, this is Diamine. Writer's blood. Fantastic ink. If you don't have this ink, I highly recommend it, but I kind of have a soft spot for these kind of burgundy colors. Seems like the ink is flowing great. So I'm happy so far. I'm going to keep using this pen for a little bit before I figure out my final verdict on it. I really enjoy many aspects of it, but I do see some areas for improvement, and I'll go over those in my full-length review. I just want to say thank you for watching.